2031 Nine Heavens Ranking.
I apologize if my words offended you, but I can assure you that I don't think of the Sword Emperor qualification as a game.
Said Yuan.
Humph.
The Sword Empress snorted.
Whatever, I've lost my desire to spar now.
Without saying another word, she turned around and flew away.
That was a Sword Emperor?
Wang Ming asked, his voice tinged with nervousness, sounding like he'd just witnessed something beyond comprehension. Being a God Ascension realm cultivator and one of the strongest sword masters in the Nine Heavens, the Sword Empress naturally exuded an overwhelming presence that would make any immortal timid, much less a mortal like Wang Ming.
I'm surprised you can speak with her so casually. I wouldn't even be able to respond properly.
Wu Zhao remarked. Kellen smiled and said,
Although she's known for having a foul mouth, her abilities are undeniable and within the top 20 in the entire Nine Heavens. Top 20? Then where do you rank?
Shirlang asked, and everyone there stared at Kellen.
Ha ha ha. There's no need to look at me. I don't even rank in the top 1,000, much less the top 20. However, if we're talking about physiques alone, I am definitely top 10 in the Nine Heavens.
He proudly boasted.
What? You're that strong and can't even reach the top 1,000? That's hard to believe.
Hong Xiuquan exclaimed.
You have no idea how vast and scary the Nine Heavens can be. There are countless geniuses, and many monsters are out there. Even someone like Senior Bai doesn't rank in the top 20.
Said Kellen.
I wonder where someone like Yuan ranks.
Wang Bingbing wondered out loud.
Yuan?
Kellen turned to look at him with a pondering face. After a moment of serious thinking, he spoke.
Although he may have the power to fight God Ascension cultivators, that is limited only to the Nine Heavens, where our powers are limited by the heavens. He wouldn't last more than a minute against them outside, where most of the newer powerhouses make their territory.
Due to the restrictions within the Nine Heavens, most powerful families and factions relocated their headquarters to the Starry Sky, where such limitations did not exist, allowing God Ascension cultivators to wield their full strength when necessary. Only those with deep, ancient roots, such as the Royal Dragon clans, chose to remain in the Nine Heavens, enduring the drawbacks out of legacy and pride.
That said, he's definitely in the top 1,000 as long as he's within the Nine Heavens, and this is overall, where most are monsters with millions of years of experience. If we consider his age, then he's definitely in the top 10 within the young generation ranking. What do you consider the younger generation?
Legion C asked.
Anyone under 100,000 years old.
Said Kellen.
100,000 years is young.
Wang Ming muttered in a dumbfounded voice.
There's no way Yuan is only top 10. He's definitely top 3 if not number 1.
Chu Yoxiang remarked with certainty.
I know Yuan is immensely talented, but you shouldn't underestimate others. For example, the Holy Sword Maiden, who will also be participating in the Sword Emperor qualifications, is currently ranked 9th in the Nine Heavens. As for the current top 3, they're all monsters in the 9th heaven. Who are the top 3?
Wang Xiuing asked.
Currently ranked 3rd is the Bloodthirsty Monk of the Hell Temple, though the rankings shift every few years as the rest of the top 10 close the gap. The top 2 are no different, 1st and 2nd place frequently trade positions. As of now, 2nd belongs to the Holy Maiden of the Divine Essence Monastery, while 1st is held by the Heavenly Son of the Tion family.
Kellen explained.
The Hell Temple is an elite sect within the 9th heaven, and the Divine Essence Monastery is currently the 2nd most powerful sect in the Nine Heavens. As for the Tion family, they're a powerhouse in the 9th heaven, known for creating countless geniuses. In fact, they're only right behind the Celestial Emperor's family in terms of influence. Divine Essence Monastery.
Yuan muttered as he found this name familiar for some reason. Then he remembered that his soul cultivation technique had been given by Lady Xiang, who was from there.
Do you know Sister Bu from the Divine Essence Monastery?
Yuan suddenly asked Kellen.
Sister Bu?
Kellen raised his eyebrows in a puzzled manner for a second before he realized who Yuan was talking about.
There's no way you're talking about the Holy Empress. Last I spoke to her, she called herself the Holy Maiden. So you are talking about the Holy Empress. Holy Empress Xiang, also known as Xiang Bu, is the current leader of the Divine Essence Monastery. She acquired that title about a decade ago.
Explained Kellen. He then asked,
How did you meet someone like her? She rarely leaves the Divine Essence Monastery. Even I have only ever seen her once. And for you to address her as Sister Bu, you must be quite close with her. I met her through Sister Su, but that's all I can say.
Said Yuan.
So, who's the current Holy Maiden?
He then asked.
That would be Azure. What? Azure?
Yuan raised an eyebrow at this name.
Oh, Her real name is Wei Lan, but she prefers to be called Azure.
He explained.
Why? Do you know her, too? No, but her name reminds me of someone I once knew.
He responded, a hint of regret and sorrow in his tone. Though Kellen couldn't understand it, the others knew who Yuan was referring to.
How does the ranking work, anyway?
Shimeli suddenly asked.
Do they fight for it or something?
Kellen explained.
Yes and no. With one exception, everyone in the top 10 has fought with each other, and the Heavenly Son came out on top after defeating the others. The only exception is Azure, who has never fought with anyone. However, she did reveal her prowess once, and that was enough to convince everyone that she could rival the Heavenly Son, hence her rank.
2032 Heavenly Son.
Heavens, she managed to reach the top 2 just by showcasing her prowess? I cannot imagine how powerful she must have been.
Wang Ming commented. Yuan then asked. Kellen chuckled and said.
Cultivation gods? You can count the number of them with one hand. They're too powerful to be in the ranking. The same goes for the Great One. The ranking is mostly for those within the God Ascension realm, after all. What about this Heavenly Son guy? How powerful is he?
Shirlang suddenly asked.
Well, he's not ranked first in the younger generation for no reason. If you want to see his prowess, you'll be able to do so soon, since he's also participating in the Sword Emperor qualifications. Really? Now this is interesting.
Shirlang remarked, as he turned to look at Yuan. The others knew what Shirlang was thinking about and smiled, as they all thought the same.
What are you looking at? It's not like we'll fight each other in the Sword Emperor qualifications.
Yuan said.
No, but you'll be fighting each other indirectly for the ranking. Since more than one person can qualify for the title of Sword Emperor, there'll be a ranking for your achievements. If you rank first, you'll be rewarded with something at the end. What? More than one person can qualify as Sword Emperor?
Wu Zhao said. The others were just as surprised since this was their first time hearing about it.
Anyone who passes the trials will qualify. Why do you think there are many Sword Emperors running around the 9 heavens? So being a Sword Emperor isn't anything too special.
Wang Ming shook his head.
What about a Sword God? Surely, there must be only one of them out there. Sword God?
Kellen laughed out loud before responding.
There's no such thing. What? There isn't? That doesn't make any sense. Why can't the strongest Sword Emperor just become the Sword God or something?
Wang Bingbing asked, clearly confused.
Well, that's because it would get far too bloody.
Kellen replied.
There was once a Sword Emperor who declared himself the Sword God, and the moment he did, the other Sword Emperors challenged him. He was killed, and the one who defeated him then tried to claim the title for himself, only to be killed as well. It kept happening, one after another, until several Sword Emperors had fallen. Since then, no one's dared to call themselves the Sword God. So they're scared of being attacked by other Sword Emperors? A true Sword God wouldn't care about being challenged because they know they're the strongest. You are right, but nobody has ever reached that point.
Kellen paused for a moment before continuing.
Actually, there is one person who might have qualified for that title. The Faceless Sword Emperor.
Legion C said. Kellen nodded.
That's right. The Faceless Sword Emperor was known to be undefeated in history, so he would have probably been able to claim that title and get away with it, but he disappeared somewhere and hasn't been seen since then. Who knows? Maybe someone like the Faceless Sword Emperor will appear again.
Legion C said with a mysterious smile.
If you're talking about Yuan, while I don't doubt his talents, he's far from the Faceless Sword Emperor's level.
Kellen shook his head. Legion C shrugged. They continued chatting about the rankings and about some of the most powerful individuals in the 9 heavens. A few hours later, Kellen stopped talking when he noticed a powerful presence approaching in their direction.
Speak of the devil.
He muttered. Moments later, a handsome young man clad in golden robes landed before them, his sharp gaze scanning everyone there until it landed on Yuan.
You must be the one who broke the crystal,
said the handsome young man.
Yes, and who are you? You don't know who I am? That's impossible.
The young man said, his tone dripping with disbelief, as if he were certain the entire world knew his name.
That's the Heavenly Son, Tion.
Kellen revealed the handsome young man's identity.
So you're ranked first in the younger generation, huh? We were just talking about you.
Yuan said.
What's a big shot like you want from me? So you do know me,
said Tion.
I came here after hearing about the reason for the delay. Even I couldn't crack the crystal, so I had to see for myself the kind of person who did. Is that so? Well, what do you think?
Yuan asked as he spread his arms, almost as if telling him to take a good look.
Honestly? I'm disappointed. You're nothing more than a wannabe faceless sword emperor with that appearance. That crystal probably cracked because I already weakened it.
Yuan smiled behind his mask, and said,
I could say the same about you. I had some high expectations after Kellen boasted about you, but you're just some egotistic brat.
Despite Yuan's rude remark, Tion Jueshing did not seem offended.
I get that often, but so what? This is the norm for the truly strong. You wouldn't understand it. If you're so strong, you will definitely rank higher than me in the Sword Emperor qualifications, right? Without a doubt.
Tion Jueshing answered without even the slightest hesitation.
Wanna bet on it?
Tion Jueshing narrowed his eyes and pondered for a moment before retrieving a medallion.
If you somehow rank higher than me, I, Tion Jueshing, will accept any one request from you as long as it's not unreasonable. A request?
Yuan raised an eyebrow.
Are you looking down on my bet? My family is literally only second to the Celestial Emperor's family in the 9 heavens. There's almost nothing I cannot do for you,
He said.
In that case, I'll bet.
Tion Jueshing suddenly raised his hand and interrupted.
You don't need to bet anything since there's nothing I want, nor is there anything that you can possibly do for me.
2033 Sword Emperor Qualifications begins.
If you say so.
Yuan calmly responded to Tion Jueshing's words.
Then I'll see you during the Sword Emperor qualifications,
Said Tion Jueshing before flying away and disappearing in the blink of an eye.
My God, I can believe you actually picked a fight with the Heavenly Son.
Kellen said with a dumbfounded look on his face. Despite his status within the Celestial Overlords, even he didn't have the guts to offend someone like Tion Jueshing.
You probably don't know how horrifying the Tion family truly is. They're so bold that they're even willing to pick a fight with the Celestial Emperor.
He added.
Oh. Why did they fight with the Celestial Emperor?
Yuan asked, clearly intrigued by this information.
I don't know all the details, but it happened just a few decades ago.
Kellen said.
The two families have always been at odds since ancient times, but something recently pushed the Tion family over the edge. Whatever it was, it enraged them so much that both their patriarch and matriarch stormed the Celestial Emperor's family estate. If you're that interested, ask Celestial Overlord Su or Overlord Bai. They probably know.
Yuan nodded.
When I get the chance.
He reasoned that since he was already at odds with the Celestial Emperor, it might be wise to form alliances. And if the Tion family also had grievances with the Celestial Emperor, they could prove to be valuable allies. Meanwhile, Tion Jueshing returned to where his family was staying after his brief meeting with Yuan.
Where did you go?
A beautiful young lady with black hair and brown eyes asked him.
I met someone interesting.
Answered Tion Jueshing. The young lady raised an eyebrow and asked.
Interesting? How? I don't quite know how to describe it.
Tion Jueshing said, recalling his encounter with Yuan.
At first, he seemed ordinary, but the more I spoke with him, the more I felt something deeper. It was as if he was wrapped in an indescribable aura, something beyond what the eye could see. That's quite the high praise from you, brother. Now I want to meet this guy,
said the young lady, who turned out to be his sister.
That guy called me arrogant, but he is obviously even more arrogant than I.
Tion Jueshing shook his head with an entertained smile.
Even more arrogant than you? That's hard to believe. Right? That's mostly why I found him interesting. Anyway, I made a bet with him, that if he outranks me in the Sword Emperor qualifications, I'd do any one thing for him. What? What if you lose?
Tion Jueshing frowned and said.
You think I'll lose to some nobody? I'll crush him quickly and show him why I'm ranked first in the 9 heavens. Anyway, will father and mother be coming to watch or what?
He then asked.
No, but they'll be watching from home.
She said. Tion Jueshing sighed out loud.
I wonder how long this will continue. It's already been several decades, and they still haven't gotten over it.
His sister frowned and said.
Don't talk nonsense. You have no idea what they're going through now.
Tion Jueshing looked at her with a curious gaze and asked.
What about you? How are you feeling?
She shrugged.
I'm a bit disappointed, but that's about it. You're quite heartless. I don't want more competition. You're already too much for me to handle.
She sighed.
Whatever. I'm going to cultivate.
Without another word, Tion Jueshing sat down and closed his eyes. The other participants also took this time to mentally prepare themselves. Whether it be the Holy Sword Maiden or the Holy Sword King, everyone took the Sword Emperor qualification seriously. Only Yuan was spending his time casually chatting with his friends. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, the moment everyone had been waiting for had arrived. The Sword Emperor qualifications were about to begin.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have a moment of your time before we begin the Sword Emperor qualifications?
Senior Bai's voice echoed through the skies just moments before his figure descended gracefully, coming to a halt above the platform on the central island. Despite the presence of tens of millions of spectators, an eerie silence fell over the venue, as if the entire world had paused to listen.
Thank you.
Senior Bai then retrieved a long scroll with several names written on it and began calling them one by one.
These will be this year's Sword Emperor qualifications. Please come to me when you're called. Holy Sword Clan's Holy Sword Maiden.
Seconds later, the Holy Sword Maiden's beautiful figure appeared before Senior Bai, greeting him at her arrival.
Holy Sword Clan's Holy Sword King.
The Holy Sword King appeared to greet him a moment later.
Ethereal Sword Clan's Vanishing Sword.
A middle-aged man appeared and greeted him. Several names later,
Tion family's Heavenly Son.
Tion Yueshing made a grand entrance, radiating a powerful aura as he appeared before the crowd. His silky black hair shimmered under the sunlight, and a confident, handsome smile played across his face. The moment he appeared, countless girls in the crowd erupted into cheers, swooning like fangirls at a concert. Unsurprisingly, being the eldest son of the second most influential and powerful family in the Nine Heavens, it attracted a lot of attention and attraction. Senior Bai cleared his throat loudly, instantly halting the loud noises. Once the place calmed down, he continued, reading the last name on the list.
Yuan.
The crowd raised their eyebrows at Yuan's brief introduction. The next moment, Yuan leaped from his island and flew towards Senior Bai with incredible speed, stopping right before him. Both the Heavenly Son and the Holy Sword King narrowed their eyes at Yuan, but he ignored them and greeted Senior Bai.
Good luck.
Senior Bai responded to his greeting, which caught everyone off guard, as it was the first time he had acknowledged any participant. Both the spectators and the contestants were stunned, and whispers quickly spread as curiosity about Yuan's identity began to grow. 2034 Mystic Sword Tablet. When the spectators looked closely at Yuan's appearance, many raised their eyebrows.
Hey, isn't that the Faceless Sword Emperor's appearance? Who is this guy, and why is he dressing up as one of the greatest Sword Emperors to ever exist? Is he mocking the others or something? What a rude and disrespectful bastard. People like him tend to come in last.
The spectators began cursing Yuan for his appearance.
Wait a second. Look at his cultivation. He's only at the peak of immortal ascension. He's still immortal. What? That's impossible. He must be hiding his cultivation. There's no way a mortal could comprehend Supreme Sword Aura, much less qualify for the Sword Emperor qualifications.
Almost everybody there figured Yuan was hiding his cultivation with some kind of trick. Senior Bai ignored the slight commotion and continued to speak.
Now that all of the participants are here, allow me to explain the rules for the Sword Emperor qualifications.
He gestured toward the standalone doors on the platform beneath them and continued.
I'll keep things simple. Each door represents a trial. In order to be acknowledged as a Sword Emperor, you must pass all trials. Of course, this means more than one of you can become a Sword Emperor. However, there'll also be a ranking depending on your results. Whoever comes in first place will be awarded a priceless and one-of-a-kind treasure that was recently discovered, the Mystic Sword Tablet, which was left behind by an unknown sword master who seemed to have glimpsed into a realm above Supreme Sword Aura. What? Above Supreme Sword Aura?
The spectators expressed disbelief after hearing this. To satisfy the doubters, Senior Bai retrieved a fist-sized jade tablet bearing a small sword cut, seemingly unremarkable and unassuming at first glance. To the ordinary eye, it was nothing special, but to sword masters who had reached a certain level of mastery, that tiny cut held an unfathomable secret, an imprint of sword intent so profound it defied comprehension.
What the fuck is that?
Sword Empress Huang exclaimed in a shocked voice after seeing the tablet, her eyes wide with disbelief. Not only Sword Empress Huang, but every sword master present trembled with a mix of shock and excitement upon seeing the Mystic Sword Tablet, as none of them had ever witnessed anything like it. To them, Supreme Sword Aura was the pinnacle of swordsmanship. The mere suggestion that a higher realm of mastery existed shattered their understanding and left them in awe. After giving everyone a glimpse of the Mystic Sword Tablet, Senior Bai quickly stored it back inside his spatial ring.
First place. I have to claim it.
Tion Yueshing muttered, his eyes burning with determination and desire. Around him, the other participants wore similar expressions, faces etched with ambition, each one ready to stake everything for the title. Meanwhile, Yuan was looking at the notifications that had popped up before him when he glanced at the Mystic Sword Tablet. You have learned the existence of flawless sword aura. You have met the criteria to learn flawless sword aura. Your understanding of flawless sword aura has increased slightly. Flawless sword aura, huh? Yuan smiled inwardly.
Where did you find something like that?
Tion Yueshing asked Senior by a question that was on everyone's mind.
I'm sorry, but that is not something I can disclose right now,
Said Senior Bai as he shook his head. Although his answer left everyone disappointed, they understood why he's keeping his secret.
Anyway, let's return to the topic. I'm sure you already know this, but your life is not guaranteed during the Sword Emperor qualifications, and participants have died while attempting the trials before. That said, we will provide you with a talisman that will take you out of the trial if you think you are unable to continue. Just know that using the talisman will automatically disqualify you.
Senior Bai retrieved a stack of black talismans and handed one to each participant.
You can activate it by destroying it. None of the mechanisms in the trial will be able to touch the talisman, so you don't have to worry about it being destroyed by accident. When the trial begins, you will all be transported to the same realm, but in different locations.
Senior Bai explained.
There is a chance you may encounter other participants, but be warned, combat or intentional interference with others is strictly forbidden. Anyone caught doing so will be immediately disqualified. There will be tens of millions of pairs of eyes watching each of you, so don't think you'll be able to get away with it either. Any questions so far?
When no one spoke, Senior Bai continued.
One final note before we officially begin the Sword Emperor qualifications: you are permitted to bring your own treasures into the trial. However, be aware, within the trial, all treasures will be automatically sealed, rendering them no more powerful than ordinary weapons. Now then, the Sword Emperor qualifications will officially begin.
The very next moment, one of the sealed doors opened, revealing a white portal within.
You may enter.
Hearing this, the dozen participants flew into the portal one by one, disappearing into the trial. Meanwhile, the projections above the island began displaying the situation inside the trial.
Once again, good luck.
Senior Bai said to Yuan before he left and entered the portal. After stepping through the portal, Yuan found himself beneath a clear blue sky, standing on a wide dirt path flanked by dense tree lines on either side.
Since they didn't mention any details about the trial, I guess it's for us to figure it out ourselves.
He mumbled as he began walking down the straight path. After walking for a few minutes, he spotted a lone figure resting against a distant tree, seemingly lost in sleep. Yuan focused on this individual, but he couldn't see the man's cultivation, almost as if he were an ordinary mortal. However, he also exuded a mysterious aura. Moments later, Yuan continued walking again, only to stop again a few steps later when the man suddenly opened his eyes and slowly stood up. 2035 Sword Emperor Qualifications First Trial. As the man rose to his feet, Yuan came to a halt, his focus sharpening as he watched the stranger's every move. Without warning, the man drew the sword at his waist and unleashed a swift slash from afar, sending a powerful wave of ordinary sword aura hurtling toward Yuan. Yet, Yuan didn't move a muscle and allowed the sword aura to hit him, and when it did, the sword aura shattered into countless fragments like glass.
So it was just ordinary sword aura.
Yuan muttered as he retrieved a random sword he had in his spatial ring. Since all treasures were essentially the same in the trial, he didn't need to use number 1 under heaven, nor did he want to use it before so many spectators. Then, without hesitation, he swung at the man, sending a wave of supreme sword aura at the man. However, as if copying Yuan's actions, the man did not attempt to block it and allowed it to strike his body. Once the supreme sword aura struck his body, the mysterious aura around him flared up, deflecting Yuan's supreme sword aura. Seeing this, Yuan raised an eyebrow. The trial had just begun, yet he was already fighting an enemy immune to supreme sword aura. Something felt off. Just to make sure, he struck the man again with supreme sword aura, and sure enough, the results were the same. After blocking his second attack, the man suddenly moved, charging toward Yuan with his sword raised and gushing with ordinary sword aura.
If supreme sword aura doesn't work, then...
Yuan swung his sword at the man without channeling any sword aura, yet once again, his blade was effortlessly deflected by the aura. Yuan was certain now that the trial required him to somehow get past the man's mysterious aura, and for the next several minutes, he analyzed the man's aura to the best of his abilities. Unfortunately, he was unable to figure out its secrets. There's got to be a clue. Yuan glanced around, searching for anything that might offer a clue to counter the man's mysterious aura, but aside from the silent figure before him, there was nothing in sight to guide him. Suddenly, realization flickered across Yuan's face.
Let's see if this works.
He murmured. Lifting his sword, he gathered only ordinary sword aura, just as the man had been using all along, and unleashed a focus slash. The very next moment, his sword tore right through the aura and sliced the man in half.
An aura that blocks supreme sword aura but cannot resist ordinary sword aura, huh?
Yuan muttered out loud, his voice filled with intrigue. After defeating the man, Yuan searched his body to see if there was anything to loot.
Nothing.
With nothing left to do, Yuan continued walking the path. Before long, he came to another halt. In the distance stood not one, but two masked men, each wielding a sword, and both radiating the same mysterious aura as the one he had faced before. Without any words, the two masked men charged at Yuan, moving at a speed that was noticeably faster than that of his last opponent. Not just that, but their attacks were also much quicker and precise. However, now that Yuan knew the trick, he quickly defeated them with ordinary sword aura and continued moving forward. A few minutes later, Yuan came across 4 masked men, twice as many as in his previous encounter. Each one stood silently, swords in hand, their presence radiating the same eerie aura as before. Seeing this, Yuan smiled faintly and muttered,
"Let's see how many times you'll multiply."
This time, he took the initiative, moving before his opponents could react. Though their strength had clearly increased compared to the previous group, it still wasn't nearly enough to pose any real threat to him. In less than a minute, Yuan dispatched all 4 masked men with ease and continued down the path, fully expecting to face 8 opponents next. However, to his surprise, only a single man stood in his path. Though the aura he emitted resembled that of the previous masked opponents, Yuan could sense a subtle difference. As Yuan focused, trying to discern the subtle difference in the man's aura, the masked figure suddenly made his move. Unlike the others, he didn't strike with ordinary sword aura but enhanced sword aura instead. Seeing this, Yuan attacked with enhanced sword aura as well, and sure enough, it was able to cut through the masked man's aura. Having grasped the pattern, Yuan pressed on through the trial with a quicker, more confident pace. After defeating 2 masked opponents simultaneously, and then another wave of 4, he eventually came to a halt again, and standing before him was a lone masked man wielding supreme sword aura. When the masked man struck, his swordsmanship was precise, fluid, and refined to perfection. It was incomparably superior to that of Yuan's previous opponents, leaving no doubt that this foe was on an entirely different level. Not only did the man move like an expert with tens of thousands of years of experience, but he even used martial techniques. Yet, despite the drastic improvements, Yuan defeated the man in just a few exchanges.
"This can't be the real trial. It's too easy,"
Yuan mumbled as he continued forward. After overcoming 2 more waves of opponents wielding supreme sword aura, Yuan finally arrived at the end of the path. It opened into a vast, circular field, one that radiated an unmistakable pressure, as if silently declaring the beginning of the real trial. Without hesitation, Yuan walked to the center of the field and waited for the trial to begin. Moments later, Yuan could sense many presences appearing all around him. In the blink of an eye, hundreds, no, thousands of masked men surrounded him, each radiating a mysterious aura. Yet not all were the same. The 3 distinct types of aura Yuan had faced earlier, ordinary, enhanced, and supreme sword aura, were now interwoven throughout the crowd.
"Now this is more like it,"
Yuan muttered with an excited smile on his face.